Hello, everyone. This is Rebecca with Digital Thinker, and welcome back to another session of our HxGN Hacks series. Today, we will be continuing with system administration, and Victor will be presenting on Python Studio. I think most of us are familiar with the format by now, but if this is your first time attending a session, each Wednesday, a member of the Digital Thinker team brings you a 15-minute session with practical tips to help you get the most out of HxGN EAM. Looking ahead, just a reminder, we will not be meeting next week. So we will not be hosting a session on November 26th, but we will be back December 3rd as we wrap up the calendar year talking about mobile and field productivity. So we have a few consultants lined up to present during the month of December. And with that, I'll hand it over to Victor. One more reminder, if you happen to miss this session, all of the recordings are available on our YouTube channel, and I'll be sure to put a link in the meeting chat.
Hey, Rebecca, thanks so much for having me, and welcome everyone. Good morning and good afternoon to those who are watching later on YouTube. Yes, as Rebecca said here, we're doing Python Studio today. Some of you may be familiar with what it is. Some of you not so much. Either way, that's fine. We're going to go over quickly what it is really, how to use it, and what you might want to use it for, and then how to monitor it really. So again, pretty short session. I have a little demo for you today, but just briefly going into what it is. Python Studio, it's this Python framework that EAM developed, right? It came out, I don't know, a year or two ago. It's supposed to be used, called Flex SQLs, how they've dubbed it in EAM. But I often like to use it in integration capacities. I often prefer it over Databridge Pro in a lot of integration methods. The reason being, it's, Databridge Pro, it's a lot of black box. You don't really know what you're doing with the processors. It's a lot less customization. It is easier to see everything, but Python Studio, again, it's raw code hosted on EAM in EAM's HxGN Cloud, right? So it's not some Python code sitting around in your computer that Dave wrote 15 years ago and it's still running on some server somewhere. It's actually hosted by EAM and therefore can be triggered by EAM in ways such as Flex and alert management. So it's a framework built on Jupyter Notebook. That may mean something to you. Most likely not. It didn't mean anything to me when I first learned about it. But what it should mean to you is that it's Googleable, right? This is not something they invented for EAM. Jupyter Notebook is a framework built years ago, which means you can find a lot of good resources on it on the internet. So you don't have to just come up with everything from scratch. You don't have to learn everything here from me. A lot of this stuff you can find on the internet how to use it because it follows the same pattern as a normal Jupyter Notebook with some caveats that make it implicit to use it in EAM. So yeah, I just have a few use cases here. Again, I like to use it for integrations more than anything, but I think HxGN markets it more so to use to do more advanced stuff that Flex SQL can't do. And that's why I've actually developed a temperature fetcher type of program today for us. The idea is, should you have GIS using coordinates with your system and an asset and work orders and such, you could find the temperature, right, of where that asset's at that day. So that's an example I would imagine HxGN would like to see used for it. But you'll see in how HxGN designs it and imagines it to work, in that there are pre-configured templates, things like feeding data to AI and big data, manipulations, things like that. So there's a lot of use cases that I've not even explored myself that I'm sure you guys can come up with. That would be probably pretty innovative here. So let's get on right into it here. So again, let's talk about how we actually create our Python. So again, this is a module you must purchase from HxGN. I know it comes bundled with a lot of packages, some enterprise editions and things like that. Again, I'm not in the sales team, so not exactly sure what that comes with. But once you have it in your environment, you might have to add it to your screen, but it is this Python Studio screen here. These two screens are what's going to be relevant for us today. So actually developing the code is this Python Studio screen. Usually it doesn't come up immediately because it's a pop-up. In a lot of the ways, I think, what other screens like that? I think Databricks Pro is like that as well. So it's actually a pop-up here. So my Google likes to block it the first time, but the second time it usually opens up just fine. All right, well, that's failing. Let's talk about the code real quick. So I've written a small program here. Basically what it does, again, is once it fires off, it looks at a work order, and actually it's just hard coded to fetch the temperature for Greenville, South Carolina, where I'm located right now. So it uses a public API that's free to basically fetch the temperature, and then I go ahead and patch it back to the work order. So again, pretty easy script here. And let's go ahead and try to pop it open in the actual Python Studio here and take a look. All right, so like I mentioned, there are a lot of templates that EAM gives to you, right? So they have all these options up here, a new template, new notebook. So if we do like a new, just a new template here, you can see it just comes with the basic. There are ways, of course, to get templates out here. Let's see if I can find out where that is real quick. Python Studio templates. Here we go. These are a lot of these are actually custom to EAM. You'll see the common ones here, and then also there are the EAM ones specific to EAM. And these are great because they show you how to actually fetch things like getting an asset, right? So a lot of the ways we use Python Studios to work with the REST API. So you're going to want to get familiar with the REST API in EAM because that's primarily how we communicate, really how we communicate entirely from Python Studio once we trigger the program here. So like I said, there's a lot of custom built templates here that kind of get you familiar with the structure of how to create these programs that are specific to the EAM's version of this Jupyter notebook. So that's good to know there's templates there. So let's pop into mine here. All right, so this is all a bunch of stuff from when I first ran it. But again, the main program is right here. Once you have your program here, you can either run it just to test it from here, actually. Whoops. You can actually run it again to test it initially from the pop-up here, the Python Studio pop-up right here. But of course, I don't want to do this now because this is actually fail because it actually requires parameters that we pass in via our Flex or our alert management, which I'm about to get to here soon. So once we have our code written, we actually need to publish it to EAM to make it available to use. So to do that, we would again just save it and then publish like so. Now, once it's successfully published to EAM, we can actually access it and it gets stored as a document in EAM. So we can find it and associate with our alert management and our Flex SQL to trigger it in those two ways. So again, I guess I'll follow the slides here. So here we go, running our code, Flex SQL and alert management. So it used to be that the document was named the same as whatever you named it in the template, or rather in the in here, right? So I need a weather fetcher. It used to be actually named that EAM. I think recently, I'm not sure what they did, but they changed it to be a sequential naming, which makes it a little more troublesome to find what the actual program is called. So what I've done, or what I found to be easiest, is once you publish it, to find what that document code is so you can run it, is to actually go through alerts here. And I think you just probably pick anyone here. Again, in alert management here, of course, you need alert management to fire it this way. If you don't have alert management, you can fire it with Flex SQL. We'll get to that in a sec. But to find out the document code, alert management is the easiest way. Basically, you can choose a document here. And since this one is not set up to use Flex Python, it's not going to be able to find it. But as you can see here, now that I have this set up, you can see this is the one I just published, and you'll see the document is actually a sequential coding now rather than the name of weather fetcher, unlike these old ones that I did a while back before HxGN did that new stuff. So again, alert management, you just need to set it up like you would a normal alert, but click the Flex Python checkbox here instead of anything else. And so every time this alert runs, it'll actually fire your flex. So let's go ahead and try to run it. We'll set it for 11:11, and while we do that, we'll fire it in the flex SQL way to save time as well. So I wrote a little bit of flex here to show you how to fire it. It's very simple, right? So this flex just fires the flex Python script upon any status change of a job or PPM work order. As you can see here, all I do is pass in the code, and I pass in 2 parameters. This script here is expecting 2 parameters. And again, this is stuff I learned just by using the templates HxGN provided. It shows you how to use these parameters. I believe there's 20 or 30, maybe 10 parameters. I'm trying to forget at this point, but there's a certain amount of parameters you can use to pass into the Python script. And in this case, I'm just passing in the work order code and org. That way I can pass back the information from the temperature fetcher program here. So let's see here. So in the script, you can see I'm passing in the code and the org of the work order when I change its status. And just to confirm what I said before, yep, there's 10 parameters it looks like you could pass in. So again, if you were to create this alert on a grid, you could pass in the grid parameters right here, which is what I'm doing here, or manually do that via flex. So let's look to see if this is run here. All right, 1910 success. Okay, so our alert management has run successfully. This does not mean our Python has run successfully. To know that for sure, let's traverse now to the Python events. And this kind of gets into the next slide in the presentation, talking about monitoring your code, right? Seeing if it worked. So let's look at our events here. So this is a great screen. It looks like our program succeeded. Let's see, this is 11/18, 1918. Okay. This was yesterday. All right. So that one didn't seem to fire quite yet. Let's check out the work order one just to give you guys an idea of what this happened here. Alert management oftentimes takes a few minutes to fire. I know we're short on time here, but this one, for example, let's just change the status. The work order again, status change should fire our flex. And our flex SQL should then fire our flex Python. We have 2 flexes in here. So I've created this UDF here that is just used for this presentation, right? Again, it should be storing the temperature that is fetched from this OpenAI for Greenville, South Carolina here in Celsius. So let's see if it fired this time. Okay, there's our one here that just fired. And again, it takes a few minutes. All these things are run by EJ cron jobs in the back end of EAM, right? So Java jobs, so they're run on schedules, right? So I guess I'll touch on that real quickly. So in order to make sure this stuff fires, this driver must be on in job setup. So you'll see this fires every minute here. So every minute it'll actually run the program, this Flex Python job. So back to our events here. Okay, started. Come on. This is yet to be evaluated. That's why sometimes it requires you putting a minute in the future. Okay. All right. Okay, so now this has changed, succeeded. This is the one, again, run by our SQL. I'm sure the alert manager want to be a minute behind here since I just reset it. But here's what's nice about this, right? So again, monitoring your code. I've written lots of screens, right, to actually check, whether or not it succeeded in certain API calls and store them in UDSs via API calls, right? Again, best to be familiar with this API reference here. But for what we're doing here, everything you should know is actually in the logs here. So this is good news. We only have 1 log. If it failed completely, if the Python script was inoperable, you'd get an error log. But in this case, we just have the log of what I've actually manually logged via the script. You can see I have little EAM log things here. That's what that does. So this first param is the work order code. If we then traverse that work order, which I think we were already on, and then reset it, you'll see it's actually come in and updated the temperature for Greenville. So again, this is, just a small, test, right? There's a lot of crazy things you can do with this. I like, again, to use it a lot for integrations. Um, but that's the gist, really, right? So Flex Python, it's a great product. I use it a lot, pretty daily, truthfully. Um, and again, the main two ways you run it are alert management and Flex Python, and Flex Business Rules, excuse me. And again, the monitoring is mostly within this Flex Python events, and there's great logs in here to find out and tell you what to do. So that's it. That's the demo. So um, Rebecca, I guess back to you. How do you want to close
Yeah,
this out?
that's great. Such a creative use case for Python Studio. And yeah, I've never attempted to set it up myself, but I think that definitely helped me to kind of start brainstorming ways to utilize it and seeking help from folks like Victor who are more knowledgeable in that technical realm. But feel free if you have any questions, definitely put them in the meeting chat. Otherwise, we'll be back on Wednesday, December 3rd, as we kick off our series on mobile and field productivity. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a great day and thanks for joining.